along or read along. And if you'd prefer just to sit and listen, you're welcome to do so as well. Section 1. I heard these words of the Buddha one time when the Lord was staying in the town of Kamasata Dharma, in the land of Kuru people. The Lord addressed the bhikkhus. There is a path which can be realized purification, overcome anxiety, fear, and end pain, distress, and grief, and attain the right practice. This is the path of the dwelling in the 4 grounds of mindfulness. What are the 4 grounds of mindfulness? They are the 4 methods of observing body as body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, and objects of mind as objects of mind. Section 2, Body. What is the way to remain established in the awareness of body as body? When the practitioner walks, they know they are walking. When they stand, they know they are standing. When they sit, they know they are sitting. When they lie down, they know they are lying down. When they wake up, they know they are waking up. Awake or asleep, they know they are awake or asleep. Further, bhikkhus, when practicing awareness of the body, practitioner is clearly aware of the positions and movements of the body, such as going out and coming in, bending down and standing up, extending limbs or drawing them in, when wearing the sakati robe, carrying the alms bowl, walking, standing, lying, sitting, speaking, or being silent. They know the skillful way of being aware. Further, bhikkhus, a practitioner is aware of body as body. When breathing in, they know that they are breathing in, and breathing out, they know that they are breathing out. When breathing in a long breath, they are breathing in a long breath. When breathing out a long breath, they know that they are breathing out a long breath. When breathing in, they are aware of their whole body. Breathing in, they are aware of the cessation of the activity of their body. Breathing in, they are aware of the cessation of the activity of their speech. Further, bhikkhus, a practitioner is aware of body as body when feelings of bliss, joy, happiness, and equanimity arise during their concentration and saturate every part of their body. These feelings envelop the whole of their body. Just as someone who puts on a very long robe which reaches from their head to their feet, and there is no part of their body which is not covered by this robe, so the practitioner with an enormous mind envelops their whole body in understanding and leaves no part of the body untouched. Further, bhikkhus, a practitioner who is aware of the body knows very well that this body exists due to the interdependence of the parts of the body. From the top of the head to the soles of the feet, they see all the parts of the body, observe the elements which compose the parts of the body, and visualize the dispersion of these elements back to the earth. When they visualize it like this, they compare it with their own body. This body of mind will also undergo a transformation such as this. In the end, there is no way it can avoid this condition. This is how a practitioner is aware of body as body, both inside the body and outside the body, and establishes mindfulness in the body with recognition, insight, clarity, and realization. This is called being aware of body as body. Section 3, Feelings. What is the way to remain established in the awareness of feelings as feelings? When the practitioner has a pleasant feeling, they know immediately that they have a pleasant feeling. When they have an unpleasant feeling, they know immediately that they have an unpleasant feeling. When they have a neutral feeling, they know immediately that they have a neutral feeling. The same is true when the practitioner has a pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral feeling in the body, of the mind, of this world, not of this world, with desire, not associated with desire. This is how the practitioner is aware of feelings as feelings, both inside the feelings and outside the feelings, and establishes right mindfulness. If there are bhikkhus and bhikkhunis who meditate on feelings as feelings, according to these instructions, then they are capable of dwelling in the meditation on feelings as feelings. Section 4, Mind. What is the way to remain established in the meditation on mind as mind? When the practitioner's mind is attached to something, they know it is attached to something. When the practitioner's mind is not attached, they know it is not attached. The same is true when the practitioner's mind hates something or is not hating, is confused or is not confused, is defiled or not defiled, is distracted or not distracted, has obstacles or has no obstacles, is tense or is not tense, is boundless or is bound, is concentrating or is not concentrating, is liberated or is not liberated. That is how the practitioner is aware of mind as mind, both inside the mind and outside the mind, and establishes mindfulness in the mind with recognition, insight, clarity, and realization. And that is called being aware of mind as mind. If bhikkhus or bhikkhunis meditate on mind as mind according to the details of these instructions, then they know how to dwell in the practice of observing mind as mind. Section 5, Objects of Mind. What is the way to remain established in the meditation on objects of mind as objects of mind? When the practitioner realizes that their eyes in contact with form give rise to an internal formation, then they know without any doubt that an internal formation is being formed. If there is no internal formation, they know without any doubt that there is no internal formation. If an internal formation which had not arisen formerly now arises, they know this. If an internal formation which has arisen formerly now comes to an end and will not arise again, they know this. The same is true with all the other sense organs: ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. If bhikkhus or bhikkhunis meditate on objects of mind as objects of mind according to these instructions, then they know how to dwell in the practice of observing objects of mind as objects of mind in the 6 realms of consciousness. Further, bhikkhus, when the practitioner is meditating on objects of mind as objects of mind, if they see sensual desire in themselves, they know without any doubt that sensual desire is there. If they see no sensual desire in themselves, they know without any doubt that no sensual desire is there. If a sensual desire which has not arisen formerly now arises, they know this without any doubt. If a sensual desire which has arisen formerly now comes to an end, they also know this without any doubt. The same is true of the four other obstacles: anger, torpor, agitation, and doubt. If bhikkhus and bhikkhunis meditate on objects of mind as objects of mind, according to the details of these instructions, then they know how to dwell in the practices observing objects of mind as objects of mind with regard to the five obstacles. Further, bhikkhus, when the practitioner is meditating on objects of mind as objects of mind, if they see in their mind the factor of awakening, mindfulness, they know without any doubt that mindfulness is there. When mindfulness is not present, they know without a doubt that mindfulness is not present. When mindfulness, which has formerly not been present, is now present, the practitioner also knows this without any doubt. When mindfulness has arisen and is still present, is not lost, does not decline, but increases, the practitioner is also aware of all of this. The same is true of all the other factors of awakening: the investigation of dharmas, energy, joy, ease, concentration, and equanimity. This is how the practitioner is aware of objects of mind as objects of mind, both the insight of the objects and the outside of the objects, and establishes mindfulness in the object of mind with understanding, insight, clarity, and realization. And that is called being aware of objects of mind as objects of mind. If bhikkhus or bhikkhunis meditate on objects of mind as objects of mind, according to these instructions, then they know how to dwell in the practice of meditating on objects of mind as objects of mind with regard to the seven factors of awakening. After the Lord Buddha has spoken, the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis who heard him teach were delighted and endeavored to carry out the practice. I now ask that together we can engage in mindful silence until the beginning of the service.
This time, I'd like to invite our incense lighters forward. And if you would turn to page 2 in your chant book, you can follow along with me in the incense lighting gatha in the middle of the page. In gratitude, we offer this incense throughout space and time to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting careful efforts, wholehearted awareness, and the fruit of understanding slowly ripening. May we and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home. Good morning. I'm Nasanskara. I'm a Dharma teacher intern here at the temple. So I'm delighted to see so many of you here today. It's kind of cold and icy outside, so I'm glad you all made it. I have just a couple of courtesy announcements. Anybody with small children, there's a downstairs area that can accommodate any needs that you might have. A space down there for anyone, even if you don't have small children. There's a water fountain down there, additional bathroom, kitchen, water fountain, toys, library, and just some quiet space. During service, if you can avoid it, please don't walk in front of the seated folks and in between them and the dais. We'd ask that you walk around. So, and I think that's it. We're gonna stand and greet each other silently. And while we are standing, if you want to reach and grab your chant books and turn to page 3, we will chant the 3 refuges together. I go for refuge to Buddha, my deeply awakened mind, the living source of understanding and compassion, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to Dharma, the path of mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, the way of peace, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to Sangha, the loving and supportive community of practice, realizing harmony, awareness, and liberation, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I am aware that the 3 jewels are within my heart. I vow to realize them. I vow to practice mindful breathing and smiling, looking deeply into things. I vow to understand living beings and their suffering. I vow to cultivate loving kindness and compassion and to practice joy and equanimity. I vow to offer joy to one person in the morning and to help relieve the grief of one person in the afternoon. I vow to live simply and sanely, content with few possessions, and to keep my body healthy. I vow to let go of all worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, to practice wholeheartedly, so that understanding and compassion will flower, and I can help living beings be free from their suffering. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. If you want to flip around, to page, the next page, page 4, we'll chant the Heart Sutra together. Namaha Prajna Varmita Rinaya Sutra
practice of prajna, paramita, perceive the emptiness of all five skandhas, and deliver all beings from their suffering. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. O Shariputra, all dharmas are empty. They are not born nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase nor decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. No form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind. No realm of sight. No realm of consciousness. No ignorance, nor extinction of ignorance. No old age and death, nor extinction of them. No suffering, no cause of suffering, no cease from suffering, no path that leads out of suffering, no knowledge, no attainment, no realization, for there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna, paramita. Therefore the mind is clear of any delusive hindrance. Without hindrance there is no fear. Away from all delusive views, one reaches final nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future, through faith in prajna, paramita, attain to the highest perfect enlightenment. Know then the prajna, paramita, is the great Dharani, the radiant fearless mantra, the utmost supreme mantra, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest wisdom, the prajna, paramita. Gate, gate, paragate, parasangate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, paragate, parasangate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, paragate, parasangate, bodhisvaha. Dharma, prajna, paramita, hridaya, sutra.
Thank you. You all may be seated. Well, over the past month, I spent quite a bit of time, I suppose, writing and preparing, some practicing for my talk. I think I need to practice the opening part a little bit, maybe. As I said, good morning. My name is Nasanskara. I'm a teacher intern here at the temple. And today I want to talk about the 3 marks of existence. But first, I want to preface my talk with a question or a contemplation, really. For those of us with a meditation practice, or if perhaps you're new to meditation, wondering what it's about, what are we doing when we meditate? Why do we do that? Do we do it to rest our minds after a long day? Does it bring us peace? Increase our focus, our mental focus, perhaps? Or are we doing it to still our minds? All of those things a little bit. Why would we wish to still our mind? When the Buddha sat down under the Bodhi tree all those years ago, what was he seeking? It said an end to suffering, or perhaps liberation from our suffering. And he had tried all these different ways to find the answer to the liberation from suffering. He had tried the basic practices of his day, austerities, fasting. He had tried many different teachers, depriving himself of, as I said, food, but also clothing, any material goods, sometimes living in filth, rags. And he tried all these different ways, but he did not find the answer in those practices. So he said, I'm going to sit down right here, and I will go no further until I have the answer. And he sat under the Bodhi tree, it said, for 49 days. So what was he doing? Was he just like counting his breaths, right, from 5 to 1 and back again? I don't think so. He was investigating his mind, looking for the answer to the question. The Buddha knew that the answer wasn't to be found externally, out here in the world. And if he wanted to find the answer to the liberation of life, he would have to look inward. Looking inward, investigating his mind, we learned that he did achieve the goal, that the realization of the cessation of suffering. But when he realized it, he also knew that it wasn't a lesson that he could teach. He couldn't just say, I got it, guys, here it is, right? And it was something that we could go, cool, great, and now we all got it. But he said we would also have to investigate our minds, to sit and to look inward. And why? Because the realization of the liberation from suffering comes from experiential knowledge, or something I like to refer to as the reason my teacher won't just tell me the answers to my questions. I'm like, what does this mean? And my teacher's like, what does it mean to you? Or my favorite one, how does it manifest in your life? What if, like, in 6th grade, we went to our geography teacher and we're like, what are the 7 continents again? And our teacher was like, what are the 7 continents to you? How do they manifest in your life? But my teacher knew what I didn't, was that liberation from life's sufferings was something that you have to realize. What matters is how it manifests in your life. It's not something that you can just be told. Buddhists just show the way. All the work must be done by us. And so we sit and we watch our minds. We investigate inward. And what do we learn? Today, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about the 3 marks of existence, which are the lessons that we can learn through meditation. I have heard the 3 marks referred to as the essence of the Buddha Dharma. And again, these are not intellectual understandings. They are contemplative exercises, things we can try to see through the mindful eye of our practice. Because mindfulness is our thing, yes? But mindful of what? What are we trying to be mindful of? Impermanence, suffering due to our clinging to things that are impermanent, and impermanence of self or not self, or the truth that nothing is in fact self-existent. Everything that you experience through your mind are subject to those three things. The Buddha taught that all conditioned phenomena, including thoughts, emotions, and experiences, are marked by those three characteristics. They aren't actually three separate things. They're more like three different angles that center around impermanence. So let's take a brief look at each one. And inside, if you haven't seen already, your chant book this morning, there is a handout. And you can use the handout to review. You can take it with you. You can follow along with me. The first mark is impermanence or transiency, inconstancy, change, right? The Pali word is anicca. Everything changes, the Buddha taught. It may seem obvious, but much of the time we relate to things as if their existence were permanent. So when we lose things that we think we can't live without, or receive bad news we think will ruin our lives, we experience a great deal of stress. Nothing is permanent, including our lives. Okay, so have you ever noticed things change? Right? Nothing is constant. Our bodies are growing old, changing every moment. We might get a new job, and we can lose our job. Buy new clothes, our clothes wear out. Find someone to spend time with, a loved one we're in a relationship with, or a family member, and those relationships at some point will also end. The number 4 of the 5 remembrances tells us all that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change. There's no way to escape being separated from them. So, well, in Zen mind, beginner's mind, Shunryo Suzuki says, the basic teaching of Buddhism is the teaching of transiency or change. That everything changes is the basic truth for all existence. No one can deny this truth, and all the teaching of Buddhism is condensed within it. Alan Watts said, whether we like it or not, change comes. Thus, Buddhism can be summed up in 2 phrases: let go and walk on. Drop the craving for self, for permanence, for particular circumstances, and go straight ahead with the movement of life. But the Buddha was very skillful in his teaching, and he knew that saying something like let go and walk on wasn't actually going to help us. For example, maybe we've all had a friend who's experienced a breakup or loss of a loved one. You know, just saying to them, "Hey, everything's impermanent," it's not really going to be very helpful. Okay, so how do we let go and walk on? In the Satipatthana Sutta, the sutta that our Bodhisattva class students are working with right now, and that if you were here at 9:30, we chanted a version of in the opening bell chant. The Buddha calls on us to contemplate the nature of impermanence. In the first section, the body, the Buddha says, in this way, the practitioner abides contemplating in the body its nature of arising, or they abide contemplating in the body its nature of vanishing, or They abide contemplating in the body its nature of arising and vanishing. That sounds like change, yes. The next section is feelings or emotions. He goes on to pretty much say the same thing. They abide contemplating in feelings their nature of arising, or they abide contemplating in feelings their nature of vanishing. He goes on to say this about mind and mind objects. Mind objects are, the mind is like thought or perception. Mind objects are maybe mental constructs, memories, things like that. All of a nature to arise and vanish, coming and going, all impermanent. So as I said, all four of those are impermanent, but they're also conditional. Body, feelings, mind objects, memories, mental constructs, sensations, emotions, or thoughts, all constantly in flux, changing and impermanent, and conditional. One leading to another, leading to another. You know, we've all maybe at some point woken up on the wrong side of the bed. What does that mean? We wake up in the morning, maybe our alarm goes off, or actually maybe our alarm doesn't go off. We wake up late, right away we're in a panic. This feeling, we can have anxiety arise. Maybe we're going to be late to work. We know our boss will yell at us. So we have the feeling of anxiety. We start to have thoughts of maybe, why do I keep doing this? Or, you know, why can't I get my stuff in order? You know, why, like I'm never going to be successful in life. And all of a sudden we're just, you know, down in the, having a terrible day. So the Buddha in the Satipatthana Sutta is telling us to just keep watching our mind. Keep watching it and watching it so that we can see the conditional nature of those thoughts, feelings, emotions. And we're not just sitting and breathing while we meditate. We're investigating our minds. We're watching the thoughts, mental constructs, feelings, and sensations. The second mark is suffering or dis-ease. The Pali word is dukkha. This is something that I'm sure we're all familiar with. I'm sure we're all familiar with all three marks, but this is something that maybe we can, you know, call to mind and relate to very easily. Buddha said, all that is impermanent is dukkha. Life is dukkha. The Buddha said in the Four Noble Truths, he said this in the first noble truth, but he didn't mean that all of life is unhappiness and disappointment. Rather, he meant that ultimately, life cannot satisfy. Even when things do satisfy, a day at the beach with friends, a nice meal, having the money to pay the rent on time, that satisfaction doesn't last. Like, you mean I got to pay the rent next month too, right? So impermanence and dukkha are really part of the same thing. That is, because everything is constantly in flux, inconstant, and transient in nature, from the larger level of the planets in space, right? The universe rotating, moving, expanding, down to our thoughts, mental constructs, feelings, sensations, down to the minute level of imperceptible things like the atoms in our body, constantly turning, whirring around, the atoms in the world and everything around us, all constantly in motion. And because of the inconstancy, there is inherent unsatisfactoriness that runs through it all, that pervades all of our experience. Because everything is impermanent, there is a fundamental insecurity to life. And also because everything is transient and constantly changing, it requires constant effort on our part. Like, because I have to pay the rent again next month, I have to keep going to work, like every day. You know, it's a drag. It can be a drag. And even when we do work really hard to keep everything going, to keep it all in balance, there's no guarantee. Why do you think Shit Happens was the most popular bumper sticker that ever was? So again, one of the ways we can learn to deal with this, to not be thrown entirely off balance when shit happens, is to observe this unsatisfactoriness in the mind and body through meditation. And we can start to develop this insight that no matter how much I do, no matter how many days I go to work, how many clothes I buy, how many good times I have with friends, I'm just not going to be able to keep dukkha permanently at bay. So maybe I should start trying to find a different way. And then we can begin to develop an understanding that while there's nothing wrong with going to work or nothing wrong with having a good time with friends, maybe I should start developing the insight of what causes pain is usually my mental reactivity to it. My clinging or to the notion of permanence. And the third mark of existence, the last one, is impermanence of self, or not self, or the truth that nothing is self-existent. Anatta is the Pali word. We put most of our energy into protecting the self, trying to gratify it, clinging to impermanent things we think will enhance it. But belief in a separate permanent self leads to the craving that, according to the Four Noble Truths, is the source of all of our suffering. Going back to Zen mind, beginner's mind, Suzuki Roshi says of impermanence, wherever we go, this teaching is true. This teaching is also understood as the teaching of selflessness. Because each existence is in constant change, there is no abiding self. In fact, the self nature of each existence is nothing but change itself. So, what does that mean? Because all phenomena are constantly changing in flux, that means that there's also no permanent fixed self at the center of it all. What you are is not a thing so much as a thought. It's a thought about Jeremy being not good enough, or a thought about Jeremy being not smart enough, or not able to deliver a Dharma talk very well. A thought about I should be more like this and less like that. And based on the contemplation of the thought through our meditation practice, right, we can develop the experiential knowledge that all of those thoughts are conditional. They're impermanent and they're impersonal. You ever notice that your mind sometimes isn't really on your side? Right? It's not always looking out for your best interest. So who you think you are and how you think you're doing is based very much on how you're feeling at this time, in this moment, your emotional state, our bodily sensations. Anyone ever get hangry? You know, if I miss lunch by the end of the day, you know, everything is like an existential crisis. I'm like, But what happens? I go home, I eat some food, and then everything, what? It changes. My mental constructs, my thoughts, my feelings, sensations, they all change. And my wife says, "You're like a whole new person." That's her exact voice, by the way. And you know what the truth is? I am a whole new person. So the Buddha's not saying that you don't have a self, but that your self is, like Upaya said in Bodhisattva class last Saturday, more like a swarm of bees, made up of many parts that are all perceived as just one thing. And again, these parts are less a noun than they are a verb. Less things, but more like processes. Constantly changing, unfixed, and impermanent. And I'd like to close my talk with a poem. I did hear this poem in another Dharma talk that I listened to on a podcast, so I'm swiping it. But this person didn't write the poem. It's an old one. So this is a poem written by an 18th century Zen Buddhist nun named Taijitsu. And I hope I pronounced that correctly. She saw that all phenomena arose, abided, and fell away. She saw that knowing this itself arose, abided, and fell away. Then she knew there was nothing more than this, no ground, nothing to lean on, stronger than the cane she held. Nothing to lean on upon at all, and no one leaning. And she opened the clenched fist of her mind and let go, and fell into the midst of everything. All right, prepare yourself for meditation. All right. I hope you all were doing some investigating, like a bunch of Sherlock Holmes that's out there in your mind walking around. So now it's time for to share some joys and concerns. This is where we can practice the four immeasurables of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, that is sharing in the joys of others, and equanimity. So if you have a joy or concern to share, you can raise your hand. Chungosu will bring the mic around to you. I will start. You know, it was a joy to work on my Dharma talk this month, because really in doing the work of creating or writing a Dharma talk, I'm just learning also all about all of the stuff. So I learned so much, and that was just really great. I can't wait to sort of dive into the next one. And then simultaneously, my joy is that it's over. And I made it. And I have a concern I will share that is a concern brought by a Sangha member, Sunagaram Jen Waite, who's emailed us yesterday to let us know that her father has gone into the ICU. I think he may have been ill before and has returned to the ICU. And so she has concerns, of course, over her father's well-being with that. If we could all hold Jen in our hearts.
I'd like to acknowledge and ask that we hold space in our hearts and our minds for the thousands of people who have been recently their lives upended and those that will be in the future, that we keep them in our hearts and minds. Thank you.
Igesu says, thank you for the talk, Nasanskara. Igesu here, wish I could be there today. Kids are still getting over the stomach flu. Keep us in your thoughts.
I'll try not to rant, but every time somebody gives me a microphone, I kind of go off. So, I have a lot of concerns, but I'm going to ignore those for a little bit, and I want to focus on a joy that I'm kind of reaping the benefits of something that I started, probably mid last year. It was as a result of a lot of the discourse around social media and how it kind of creates these sort of, infinite feedback loops. I'm sure a lot of you are aware. And I decided to try an experiment that anybody in this room who has a complexion that is anywhere near to mine, my father, Fernando, is 100% Mexican, but my mom, bless her soul, is the whitest person you'll ever meet, and it shows. But I wanted to hack my algorithm, and I did something that was very simple. Anytime I saw a black face, I followed instantly. Didn't care what they were talking about. Didn't care if I felt like I could relate with them. I remember the very first woman that came across my TikTok feed was probably a 65-year-old woman reading a Bible verse. And I said, you know what? On the surface, I have nothing in common with this person, but I'm going to do it. And I kept that up for months and months and months through the TikTok, ban and through the election. And this February, at the beginning of Black History Month, was a very different Black History Month for me, because now when I open my TikTok, I see hundreds and hundreds of beautiful Black faces celebrating. And, this is no longer just a month where we open a textbook and read about the history of Black people in America, but this is me. I get to actively celebrate with the people that built our country, and not only physically built our country, but, the Black men and women who've been behind every single major movement of change that we have had in our country.
whether that be the Stonewall riots, the civil rights movements, the AIDS epidemic, everything they've been behind. I would guess to say there's not a single person who doesn't benefit and owes everything to these people. And this is a time to celebrate them. And I hope that maybe you can also hack your algorithms and actively fight against that feedback loop and follow people that don't look like you and don't think like you, because I think that is one of the answers that we need. So that's why I'm thankful. Thank you.
Hello, Sangha. Just wanted to acknowledge today's Dharma talk, Nasanskara. That was really great. Really appreciated that. It really resonated with me. I needed to hear that today, and it brought a lot of jokes. You're funny, and, it was great. And it clicked for a moment in the beginning of my meditation because I just had a relationship. It was great. All this hard work was put into it. She's a wonderful person. She really is, but it just didn't work out, right? And it's that clinging to that satisfaction of how good it was. If I worked harder, though, I know if I would have just offered more forgiveness, anyway. So I'm looking at all that and just looking at the clinging of the permanence of what was instead of just letting it go. And it's great. Just like, and then once I step out of that, I'm like, look at the beauty of just two people trying to have a relationship together. Like, that is exquisitely beautiful. And like, that's it. Like, that is how and I don't know, it really healed me. So I'm really grateful for that. Thank you.
I'll jump in here. My name is Chungo Su. I've been working diligently over the last maybe 6 months or so on a couple different 12-step programs. And, I noticed over the course of my Buddhist practice, I've had these kind of these habitual tendencies and behaviors that have always been, kind of hidden, like hidden in my heart and my mind. And, it's beautiful, the work and the community that's, it's really developing as part of my practice and really healing a lot of parts of my youth, different trauma. And just wanted to celebrate that. It's been it's a ongoing but beautiful process.
Kashanti Vava says, deeply grateful for the talk today. New meaningful work in September. This feels perfectly aligned and I am extremely grateful for it. This also brings a lot of change for my son and I. Thank you for the reminder that everything changes and I can hold gratitude for all my time with him and we both grow and change. And then Borpo says, I was one of the students that visited last Wednesday evening with Kaufman Interfaith Institute. And though I am sad I couldn't come in person, I am deeply grateful that we are connected through this live stream. Thank you for the words of wisdom. I will be contemplating them throughout the week.
All right. Let's take a moment to hold that all in. Okay, some temple-related announcements for February. Our online meditation group meets Wednesdays from 6 to 6:45. You can join via Zoom. You can contact Venerable Kunga for information or see the newsletter. Our weekly Dharma discussion group meets Thursdays from 9:30 to 11 o'clock. in the basement of the temple. Right now we're reading the book The New Saints by Lama Rod Owens. It's a really insightful book. You don't need to read it ahead of time. Anybody can just drop in. We read a couple of paragraphs. We talk about them. We have a good time. And you can come anytime between 9:30 and 11. You don't have to come at the beginning or stay for the whole thing. So Thursdays again. Our Avatamsaka Sutra study group is bi-weekly Thursdays from 7 to 9. You can contact Will Allington or see the newsletter for information on that group. The Grand Rapids Buddhist Temple Board meeting is Sunday, February 16th. That's going to be next Sunday from 11 to 1 in the temple community room, or you can join via Google Meet, and all Sangha members are invited to observe. And we have an upcoming class, Introduction to Meditation from a Tibetan Perspective. It meets, or is going to be Saturday, February 22nd from 9 a.m. to noon on Saturday here at the temple. This is a foundational class. You'll learn and practice various meditation techniques. Class is recommended as a prerequisite to other classes at the temple if you're interested in taking the precept class, things like that. And you can email Reverend Ige Sue or see the newsletter for more information. And our Buddhist-based recovery meetings, Mondays at 6:30 p.m. for meditation, 7 p.m. for the meeting here at the temple. Wednesdays, 6:30 at the Alano Club on 1020 College Ave. And Fridays at 10:05 a.m. meditation and 10:30 here at the temple. For any details on all of those events or classes, visit zengr.org or sign up if you haven't for the newsletter. It's a great source of information. So if you want to stand, we'll recite our closing gathas. What page are those on? Going to be on page 6. Together we say,
For all unskillful action ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thoughts, now I atone for them all. Vast is the robe of compassion, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Buddhist teachings for the benefit of all sentient beings. All beings, one body, I vow to liberate. Endless blind passion, I vow to uproot. Dharma gates without number, I vow to enter. The great way of Buddha, I vow to attain.
If we want to turn, and this side of the room can face that side, and this side of the room can face this side, we'll give each other a closing bow. All right, thank you all very much. You please return your cushions to the way you found them. If you can straighten them up, flush the fluff. Thank you. Fluff the zafu on top. Don't fluff it, please. And